Dear Christopher Frank White Wallace. Yeah, it's your boy.
Yo, what's up? My name is DJ Hard Hitting Harry. Representing Brooklyn. Currently reside in Brooklyn. Grew up in Jersey, Brick City. My early memories of Biggie. You know, like I said, I'm a DJ, so I've been DJing for over 25 years. Used to DJ for the Fugees, and back in like the 90s, I would say about 94, I had just left the Fugees and I had started working for a PR firm called Double Exposure. And as senior publicist of the PR firm, worked with a lot of different artists. One in particular that I worked with, an up-and-coming artist. Well, actually, he was an artist that ran with Ski from Jay-Z's camp. Ski was one of Jay-Z's earlier producers, and it was a cat by the name of Suave. Suave ran with Original Flavor, and Ski was part of that whole camp. Anyway, Suave had a video shoot, and Biggie came through. You know, we were cool with Mark Pitts, who said, yo, you know, I got Biggie, and you know, Biggie was just getting ready to come out with Ready to Die. He hadn't released it yet, but he was making a lot of noise on the radio, doing freestyles and mix CDs and so forth and so on. And Mark Pitts brought him, you know, to the set of Suave's video shoot. And I got to meet him then. You know, he was a really, really, really cool cat, very down to earth. We was kicking it, you know. He was like, yo, you know, I'm getting ready to release this album, and it was just a nice vibe, you know. I really connected with him on the set of the video shoot. Maybe a year or so later, you know, Ready to Die had dropped, and you know, a year or so later, I ran into him, and this is when his success started happening with Warning and, you know, all those songs that was on that album. And I ran into him at Esso's, because back then Maria Davis, who was a very popular promoter back then, she still is, you know, she's an AIDS activist today, but Maria Davis used to throw these parties at Esso's, and I ran into Biggie at Esso's, and he you know, he was all jeweled out, you know, blinged out and everything, but still, you know, real down to earth. We ran into each other. Actually, I think he was leaving, or I was leaving, or whatever, and he remembered me from the video shoot. I was like, yo, what's up, man? It's Harry, you know. Remember we were on the set of Suave's video. He was like, yo, what's up, man? You know. So that was really cool. I was glad that he remembered me. And you know, as a DJ, you know, Biggie's music, you know, I feel it. You know, it's like, you know, a lot of people say that, you know, say, I feel Biggie's music, but Biggie's music really touches, like, your soul, you know, your spirit, you know, his drive, his energy, you know, just from making, you know, something out of nothing, you know, his upbringing, growing up in, like, the hardest section of Brooklyn. I live in Bed-Stuy right now, so I totally, you know, you feel his spirit. You know what I'm saying? Just walking through the streets, and you know, I love his spirit, his energy. You know, he's just a real cat. You know, I didn't get to know him like that well, you know, like that, but you know, just in passing, you know, he was a real dude. You know what I mean? So when I play his music, you know, I feel the energy from the crowd. You know, I love the energy from the crowd. Everybody knows the words, and I just had a beef with one of my brothers. Actually, I wouldn't say a beef; it would be a debate. He definitely, his thing was, you know, oh, Biggie's not. You know, he got tired of the whole Biggie's one of the best MCs of all time or whatever. And I'm like, well, me personally, you know, I think he is one of the greatest MCs of all time, me personally. Why do I think that? I think, you know, when you hear Biggie's lyrics, you hear his passion, you hear his delivery, you know, you hear the style. I mean, not many MCs today, and he only came out with 2 albums, you know what I'm saying? And the 2 albums that Biggie came out with, compared with cats that are putting out albums after albums after albums, that's why people always refer to Biggie. you know, or they copy his style because his style was just like, it was like that. It was original, you know, his swag, you just couldn't touch it, you know, in just 2 albums. So can you imagine, you know, if you can imagine the albums that he would have spit since then, like since the 90s. Like we're in 2009, and you know, you just can't even imagine what he would have delivered if he only came out with the style and the concepts and the delivery that he came out with, Ready to Die and the next album. So I guess that's it, man. You know, I'm very happy to, as a DJ, to continue to play Biggie. I will always play Biggie. He delivered classics. You know, that's another thing. It's like any MC can go in the studio and put out an album, but can you deliver a classic? And with Biggie, it's all about the classics. Every last song is a classic, straight up. So that's my take on Biggie. Hey, you gotta get the shirt, man. You know what I'm saying? Represent B.I.G. all day, every day. You know.
Tell Puff I'm down with chasing the dream. Whatever he want me to do, I'm in.